Hello, welcome to Talking Orangutans.
All right, that's it. As I'm starting this, I'm just going to read the questions. What's your surname?
Swanepoel.
Swanepoel. So we have Eduard Swanepoel, political scientist, here today. If you can call it. What's your official job title?
Researcher.
Researcher.
Yeah, more.
And you're doing your master's degree in?
Political science.
And hypotheses that you're testing or checking out? Or
doing on a land reform and social housing at the moment.
for which country?
For South Africa.
For South Africa.
Yeah.
So we're basically going to talk a little bit about that.
Okay.
If you're allowed to.
Absolutely.
And the other thing that we're going to talk about, I'm going to quickly read out the questions because some people just do the audio these days. And Edward is working in England at the moment with the Labour Party.
Yeah.
All right. So I want to ask him, what the fuck is he doing for the Labour Party? Then I want to ask him, what is political science? And does it actually classify as a science?
Okay.
What use does businesses, individuals, or governments have for the science of political science? And basically, then we're going to go into Brexit. And what exactly does Brexit mean? What's the pros and cons? And what's your personal opinion about it? And how do they actually decide if it's going to happen? And which institutions have influence on that? Does the EU actually has influence on if it should or shouldn't happen, or is it solely the UK or the ministers of parliament decide? Then basically, you studied at Stellenbosch University. Did that actually help you to do the job? Because my university degree didn't help me for fucking nothing. It helped me a lot, but not for my actual job. And then which aspects of political science interest you? African relations, international studies, all of that.
Okay.
Which political system do you like the most?
Okay.
Because there are quite a few. For example, the USA, UK, Germany, Russian, South African, and there's various types of democracies. And which one do you actually think is implemented in the best way?
Okay.
And then obviously we're going to go into South Africa. I try not to get too political and negative about South Africa. I'm a little bit like, if I hide behind the curtain and I close my eyes, then I feel like you won't find me. And I feel like I do the same with South Africa. I just close my eyes. I don't want to look at it because it makes me negative. But I want to have your opinion on South African politics, this land reform. What's the situation with the ANC, the EFF, the DA? And basically, do you feel positive for the political climate going forward?
Okay.
And then if there's anything else coming up. Now, if you look at all those questions, I've been talking for fucking 3 minutes, so this might be a 2-hour podcast just to give people a heads up. But that's the stuff that I find interesting and that I actually want to check out.
Sounds good.
Sweet.
Okay.
So, how the hell did you get your job in England? How did that work out?
Just through kind of knocking on doors and finding stuff on Facebook, kind of groups where you see things are happening. I've always been quite involved in kind of protest culture in here. in South Africa, and
okay, before we go forward, what does it mean I'm involved with protests?
It's kind of like, I suppose we spoke about Joe Rogan earlier, always going on about social justice people. It's similar to that, I guess.
You're a social justice warrior?
Yeah, I don't label it that way, but I guess a warrior it's an opinion, I guess, It's not any issue in the world can be turned into a social justice cause. So I think the label is a bit misguided.
Okay.
But I guess it is defined as having, protesting about something that the government's doing, or a certain political party or
does
people
that
in
fall
power.
under civil society's involvement in politics?
It would, yes.
Yeah, because I think there's a difference between what Rogan and his friends are saying with the social justice warriors. It's the irrational approach to feminism, whatever. And they go onto Twitter and there's this social outrage. as opposed to constructive civil society getting involved. So would you say you fall out of the irrational into the rational involvement in politics?
Yeah, I mean, I guess Twitter is it's become this new kind of battleground of just mudslinging and everyone just going after each other because there are so many opinions being people have so many opinions these days, and it's such a big platform to actually voice your opinions.
Yeah.
But I think it's important to take those opinions and put it into practicality in real life. There are a lot of organizations in Cape Town, NGOs and such, who do actually do the work of holding government account to certain for certain policies and certain actions, be it on local government or national government level.
But you can't take all the opinions on Twitter serious.
No.
So how do you distinguish between the ones that you should take serious and the bullshit ones?
It just depends on what do you kind of believe, and what's based in fact. I mean, a lot of this stuff is based in fact. It's just it's a bias, People naturally gravitate towards their own biases.
Okay.
I think that's quite evident, especially in a place like Twitter and Facebook.
Is that the whole confirmation bias thing? That you already decided what you want to hear and you go look for proof to substantiate that? Yeah,
that falls into it. And obviously social media has kind of, the bubble has just grown bigger under social media because there are so many people who agree with you or disagree with you. So you can stick to your little tribe on one side and be, these people agree with me, so I'm just going to, keep them as my backup in case someone attacks me from that side, and be like, at least I've got some people on this side, But then the outrage is also amplified on social media because you see one thing you don't like and then you immediately feel, I have to respond to this,
And if you say there's organizations, for example, in Cape Town where you can get involved, which organizations and what do they do?
There's a big one at the moment called Reclaim the City, which deal with social housing, particularly in Cape Town, and kind of how evictions are being handled by the city of Cape Town, and just focusing on spatial apartheid within the South African and Cape Town context.
What does spatial apartheid mean? So
spatial apartheid means that people's houses and workplaces are often very far apart from each other, and Cape Town is a great example of that in terms of, it's called spatial apartheid because obviously apartheid is not official government policy anymore, but spatial apartheid in terms of people live far out of the city and not close to their work, and Cape Town is very segregated in that regard. There's not a lot of mixed social housing in Cape Town. Neighborhoods are very secluded. It's either you live in Constantia, and you're white and privileged, or you live in the Cape Flats where, people don't earn as much and you do have to deal with gang violence every day. And I think the gang violence is part of the reason, or the spatial planning is part of the reason gangs and violence, are so prevalent in those places, because they often get isolated and people don't feel as a part of the community in Cape Town, and they live far from their work, and there's no public transport here. And so people get, frustrated. And I think that's, Cape Town needs to be more condensed in terms of where people live and work together. So would Khayelitsha fall underneath that type of scope? I guess any informal settlement would, because it's been so prevalent in Cape Town. The first thing you see as you drive from the airport is informal settlements. So it's kind of like any tourist or visitor's first concept of Cape Town is people who live in. And is there a rough estimate on how many people live there? Because we had my wife's Polish national television through a travel channel flew in and did an episode on Anya, Polish people abroad, and they said as they landed in Cape Town, drove past Khayelitsha, and what's the estimate of how many people live there? I don't really know, so I don't want to guess, but I'm guessing Cape Town's got a population of about 4.5 million. So I think Khayelitsha should be anything from 500,000 to 1 million. I think just under 1 million people would live in crazy settlements. And for anyone listening that's not from South Africa, that's informal settlements are basically like slums, which India would have, or like what's the little areas in Brazil? I know they also have the favelas. Something similar to that. Similar. I mean, like it's informal housing. So I guess makeshift housing as opposed to having four walls and a roof.
And that sometimes is 50 kilometers from where people work.
Yeah.
With no public transport, or
transport.
official public transport.
Yeah.
It's like minivans, minibuses that can take 15, 20 people are driving up and down.
Exactly.
There's no buses, no trains, or if there are buses or trains, they're very unreliable.
Yeah.
And dangerous.
Yeah. So there's a lot of money to be invested in public transport in South Africa in general.
And before we move on a little, because anyone listening, what is, if you had to define apartheid, because some people might not know. So what is apartheid, the definition? And is it equally as bad? It's not as equally as bad, but it's got a similar connotation to old school Nazis. Like you had an official government with an opinion, and pursuing it at the detriment of a certain demographic in the population.
Yeah, I mean, people need to remember that the National Party were a fascist government.
Okay.
A far-right fascist government who excluded people based on their race. So, I mean, it's very similar to Nazi Germany.
Okay.
They didn't start an official war, but it was a daily war against people, non-white people in this country,
on human rights levels.
On human rights level. And obviously there were warlike acts that happened, in Sharpeville, and daily protests and police killing black protesters. So there were warlike conditions, especially during the late 70s and 80s, when the wall started to crumble and people felt like we need to push through this, And the security police in the the South African National Defence Force came down hard on protesters, Soweto uprising is another example. So
is what happening in is it Japan, in Tokyo, where there's also a lot of protests at the moment?
And in Hong Kong.
Hong Kong.
Yeah.
Is that similar? Due to human rights issues?
It's human rights issues. The issue there is Japan. Hong Kong is still tied to mainland China's legal policy. And the mainland China want to make it easier to extradite people based on human rights concerns. Okay. But this is and the people started protesting this, but this is kind of morphed into a bigger movement of pro-democracy forces who are actively protesting against China's human rights violations.
Communism and everything that's involved with that.
Yeah, China's not really communist anymore. It's kind of like state-run capitalism in a way. But they're not communist, but they do have... the Communist Party is the name of the governing party, but they're not kind of strictly communist in the sense that you'd read.
Because I don't know if it's if you do political science. I think political science 112 at university is you study ideologies. And I don't know, maybe you can say, but no government is implementing, I'm a fascist and I'm going to implement all the fascist principles. No government is communist anymore. It's a mixture of I take what I can to do whatever I want to do. Yeah. As far as the legal system and the people allow me. Is that basically all governments? Yeah,
I think there's extreme right-wing nationalism, but it's difficult to classify it as fascism. The president in Brazil at the moment, Bolsonaro, he's a far-right nationalist,
So far-right means arseholes and the left means nice people, generally.
In layman's terms, I guess. But I guess you get people on the far right who think the far left are, people who don't deserve.
And then there's left people pretending to be right and right people pretending to be left. So left means more liberal and right means more conservative.
In a sense, it depends how far left you go and how far right you go.
Yeah. Do you guys that work with governments or in political science, do you try to identify individuals or institutions as quickly as possible where they fall on that scale so that you can determine how you move forward with them?
In a way, you can realize or try to identify what their principles are. Because it does make it easier to work with certain organizations or certain people if you know their stances.
And you know what type of negotiations will work if it's actually worth pursuing this goal.
Exactly.
You know, don't waste your time.
Yeah. So, this makes it easier But then if you don't agree with them, the onus is also on you to kind of make your voice heard and say why you don't agree with them. So there's kind of like a healthy debate, or if they say really offensive stuff, they need to be held account for that, you know?
Okay.
Yeah. So you can't just always say, I don't want to work with this organization or this person if I strongly disagree with them. Kind of have to say why you disagree with them and then challenge their views. And open up some kind of public debate around it.
Oh. And coming back to the other institutions, organizations people can get involved with in Cape Town?
Yeah, it depends what your issues are. I mean, there's a lot of climate change organizations as well. There's an organization called Green Pop, which are very focused on environmental matters, and their main focus is to plant a lot of trees in and around Cape Town, South Africa, and Africa. Actually, I've actually done trips to Malawi.
Okay.
Yeah, so they're really good. And then there's organizations like the Social Justice Coalition, who also deal a lot with social housing policies and with public transport policies in Cape Town in particular. And the Treatment Action Campaign is a very good one. They started in the late 90s as a reaction to the Thabo Mbeki administration's stance on HIV/AIDS.
Which was?
They kind
eat vegetables and you're going to be fine.
Yeah, man to shabalang. It's actually scary that they got away with it, huh?
Because I think that was happening when we were... So just quick random... I don't know Edward.
Yeah.
I know his cousin.
Yeah, we met last Saturday.
So I met him a week ago, but he says, I look familiar. So we might have overlapped at university where we were in the same classes.
Yeah, I think we were the same age, right?
Yeah, born 85.
Yeah, 85, yeah.
And then I said he looks familiar, and he looks like the guy from Lord of the Rings. Mr. I don't know what's his name, but I think it's Urban is his surname. Coming back to what we were talking about, which was...
Yes. Oh, so in the late 90s,
the HIV. What was the stance on? What I wanted to say, when we were at university, that whole thing was quite popular 10, 15 years ago.
I think it was even earlier than that. When we were like standard 5, I think. What, grade 7? Yeah,
that far ago.
1998, 99.
No way.
Yeah.
And what was the policy that was so controversial?
They said HIV doesn't cause AIDS. Against obviously every kind of scientific and medical expert's opinion.
With the World Health Organization and everyone getting involved.
And it was quite baffling because Thabo Mbeki is seen as quite an intellectual person. He's very well read and well educated.
He was a lawyer or accountant or something.
Yeah, I think he studied law. And then,
so just for someone listening, the difference between HIV and AIDS, as I understand, HIV is the virus.
Yeah.
And then that can lead to AIDS, which is like a variety of symptoms and the immune system dropping because of the virus that you got.
Yeah.
And then because your immune system drops, a cold can kill you.
Yeah.
A flu can kill you. Anything else can kill you. So AIDS killed you, not that is a specific
it just weakens your
disease.
immune system.
It's that stops you from fighting other diseases.
Yeah.
Is that correct?
Yeah.
And they said HIV does not lead to AIDS.
Yeah, yeah. And then to come back to this organization, the Treatment Action Campaign, they launched a campaign to get antiretrovirals at government clinics, so people don't have to pay exorbitant prices for treatment.
Okay.
And ARVs lets you essentially live a normal kind of lifestyle.
Yeah.
With the virus. And it's obviously saved a lot of people's lives.
And what was the whole thing about the garlic beetroot? Was their official policy, we don't need antiretroviral treatments, just eat a lot of veg and you're going to be fine?
The official policy was not necessarily anti-medicine. It was just the government don't want to provide this medicine at clinics for free at the moment. And then, as a side note, the Minister of Health just said you should eat healthy, which is not it's not bad advice. Obviously,
it's not wrong.
It's not wrong, but you can't then on one side say we're not going to give you the medicine, and then you should just eat healthy. They go hand in hand, But she kind of made this a binary decision of just eat healthy and don't take the medicine,
Yeah.
which was a bit absurd.
And for anyone listening, the reason why this is a big talking point is because of the percentage of the population that has or have AIDS.
Yeah.
I think at 1.1 out of every 4 people.
Yeah, we're
it's
one of the
25%.
highest HIV rates in the world. Yeah.
I remember when we were doing African policy, Botswana had one of the highest rates because their military was very strong, and due to the military being strong, they went to go help out in a lot of different places, and military like getting a bit of stress relief, so they go see a few prostitutes on the side, and due to that, but their population I think is 2 or 5 million people in Botswana.
Yeah, it's a small.
So
small
although
country,
they had a very high percentage, it's a very small amount. Where if you take South Africa, that's over 10 million people that has AIDS here.
Yeah.
Which is crazy.
It's a huge number. Yeah.
You know, if you go look at a lot of our statistics, crime rates, unemployment, it's crazy to see. And then one of the most important things that the government has to look at, we don't want to.
Yeah. Yeah.
It was that when Trevor Manuel was finance minister.
He was finance minister in the early 2000s, yeah. So it's just
around about there.
Yeah, he was one of Mbeki's finance
Is
minister.
HIV and AIDS still a big thing for us in South Africa?
Yeah, it's always going to be a big thing. Yeah, it's not going to be. It just makes it easier to get treatment now, but the disease hasn't gone away. Yeah.
Why is it easier to get treatment now? What changed?
A government policy changed,
Okay.
and the clinics, some clinics have become better staffed at treating people.
But where does the money come from to do this?
It's government money, taxation money.
So someone higher up decided.
Yeah,
this is important.
the Minister of Health, yeah.
Okay.
The previous Minister of Health, Aaron Motsoaledi, was a really good kind of campaigner for greater public care and greater public, medical facilities being made available.
Okay.
Yeah.
We're going to probably come back a little bit to South Africa.
Sure.
All the previous, before we do, all those organizations that you mentioned, you recommend them for people to get a bit involved?
Yeah, absolutely. If you want to get involved with civil society, do that.
Cool,
It's
man.
a great,
I just see your mic. Just take it and then turn it a little bit towards you. There we go. A little bit more. There we go.
better.
You basically got to speak with the blue light pointing towards you.
Okay,
There we go.
cool.
Coming back to going onto Facebook and finding a job in England. How does that work?
Not like you just meet people through events, you know.
What type of events?
Talks. You go to.
But obviously politically based
political
events.
Yeah, yeah. It's
I'm not going to go to a party this weekend and find someone from the Labour Party.
I mean, you could. I don't know. Yeah. Everyone enjoys hanging out in the pub there.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I went, got involved with some of those events, and then through that you just kind of meet some people and network, and yeah, that's how kind of I got involved with some of the.
And then
Labour
your
policies.
job is a researcher.
Yeah.
And then is that a fixed term contract that you
No,
went
because
over?
I'm back here at the moment, so it's kind of very freelance at the moment.
All right.
Now, yeah.
And then they got you like a migrant visa to do that.
No, they didn't. I still had to get my own study work visa. Yeah.
So study work.
Yeah.
Is that difficult to get?
Not if you pay. It's like any other visa. Yeah, but
But that's not a working holiday visa.
no, that's a different thing. now.
Okay.
Yeah.
How much does that cost, the study work one? How much did that cost roughly
It's
to
about
get?
£400.
Okay.
So what's that about?
About 5,000 to 7,000,
Yeah, what's that,
depending on the exchange
7,500,
rate. Fucking hell. And then how long is that valid for? A year or 2 years?
2 years, yeah.
And then, where's your cubicle or office in? Are you in London, or just outside
yeah.
London?
I study at just outside of London, but I often travel into London for some of the work stuff, and then I did some work remotely as well.
And the place that you're studying?
Reading University.
A nice place,
Yeah,
beautiful,
that's okay.
and clever people that are giving classes there.
Yeah, I mean most academic institutions have good, lecturers and
Yeah. And is your master's through them or through?
yeah.
And they sent you here for the masters.
Yeah.
Or did you decide to come here?
I decided to come here. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and then going back again next month.
And then how does the Labour Party job came about?
It's just kind of I wanted something to do, and then that's how I got involved with them.
Okay.
Yeah.
And is it an hourly rate or a salary or
It's
project based?
It's an hourly rate, actually. Yeah.
And it's decent.
That's all right. Yeah. Is politics ever decent unless you're a minister of some sort, huh?
And if you take like politicians, are they slimy motherfuckers?
No, I just think it comes with. I mean, obviously they are, but I mean, I think it just comes with the job, you know. But I think they also are. You have to remember that these people are elected officials, you know. So they decided to stand, and then these people put them in office.
Yeah.
So they can't just moan about
Yeah.
being unfairly treated or being targeted or whatever. I mean, it was your choice to run on a campaign that you'd say, I'm going to improve this or improve that.
And so it comes with the territory.
It comes with the territory, yeah.
And can I ask you if you agree with the Labour Party, or do you agree more with some of the other parties?
No, I agree with I actually joined the Labour Party because they had a new leader who named Jeremy Corbyn, who I'm quite a fan of.
And I asked you a little bit about that last week, but why? I like The Guardian, and I used to like the BBC when I lived in London, because it's quite a neutral, you get on the surface type of news that covers most areas. And then later on, I like The Guardian because it just felt a little bit more honest. They don't have so many... they can basically do what they want, I feel. So, to a certain degree.
Yeah, I mean, they are kind of... you can donate funds to The Guardian.
Yeah.
It's not a corporate-owned media house.
Yeah. So they can publish anything, any style, any way they want, if they wanted to.
Yeah, The Guardian's kind of left-leaning, left-liberal.
Okay.
Whereas it's one of the few newspapers or media outlets in the UK that lean to the left. The rest are quite far right.
Okay.
Like the Daily Mail and the Telegraph, the Times.
And are they still Rupert Murdoch owned?
Yeah.
Most of them?
Yeah.
And he's got his own agenda?
Yeah, he's very far to the right.
Okay.
Yeah, and he owns Sky News as well.
Yeah.
Sky News they're not as far right, but I mean they're quite conservative.
I always feel like Sky's more sport orientated than news orientated.
There's some good football shows.
I like their football pundits.
Yeah.
But talking about The Guardian, that's where I get most of my news, and that's where I started seeing Jeremy Corbyn.
Yeah.
And the way that he was being reported, I was like, I quite like this dude.
Yeah, it was just a breath of fresh air when he came when he was standing for the leadership for the first time in 2015. You know, he espoused a lot of the views that I had. You know,
so if you say that, what does that mean?
He was very much against the Iraq War, which Tony Blair, remember, he was the head of the Labour Party from 1997 to 2010, I think.
Jeez, that long?
2007, sorry.
Jesus.
So 10 years out. And he was the guy who caused destruction in the Middle East, you know. And I felt like this guy just always got away with all this stuff, and like he's never been held accountable for it. And finally, someone like Jeremy Corbyn came and said, "Listen, this guy essentially needs to go on trial for his crimes." You know,
because his public image was amazing, Tony Blair.
Yeah, I mean, he was a smooth cat, you know, and he kind of, he was the first kind of baby boomer president.
Yeah.
I mean, Prime Minister of the UK. Came in a feel-good 90s vibe. You know, he came into power when that whole Britpop thing was happening in the UK.
Spice Girls and all that shit.
Oasis, blah, you know? And everyone felt like, oh, Britain's on a high, you know?
Yeah.
And then he rode that wave, and then obviously his support for George W. Bush and the Iraq War was...
so you don't like Tony Blair?
No.
And George Bush?
No.
So... And then, when did David Cameron came?
Well, it's not about not liking them. It's just about them...
Their policies.
I feel like some of these people's policies and some of their actions just don't get enough scrutiny, you know?
So you don't agree with the whole Iraq thing?
No, I think it was a massive failure.
But what... So you don't think weapons of mass destruction? It was an oil-based thing?
Yeah, it was just a way to influence the region, you know? They essentially lied about having weapons of mass destruction, which is, you know, that's crazy.
And they're not accountable for it.
No one's being held accountable for it, you know. People throw eggs at him in the public, but that's about it, you know.
Yeah.
And he still goes on all the TV shows as if nothing happened, and
Give speeches for £500,000.
£500,000. Yeah, I don't know why would anyone want to listen to Tony Blair. Let alone pay £500,000 for it or whatever his fee is.
What was his party?
He was Labour Party.
His Labour Party.
Yeah, so as soon as
although you like the Labour Party,
essentially I liked a lot of their principles. I mean, a lot of Tony Blair's domestic agendas weren't. I mean, they were quite reasonable. You know, he invested a lot in kind of mother to child care and some education reform and stuff. But then I just couldn't forgive him for the Iraq War stuff.
Yeah. And they're still there.
Who?
America.
Yeah, they're still there.
It's crazy. Yeah. Like they're still there.
Yeah. And in Afghanistan, which has been now 18 years.
And it's like I listened to quite a bit of Jocko Willink because I got to know him from Rogan. Okay. So it's interesting that I like this guy. I like his outlook on life, but I don't agree with his, it's good to be in Iraq, which is strange, So, but I think that's what it means to become an adult and become mature, is that you can respectfully disagree with people and individuals.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm trying to think. It wasn't David Cameron that took over from Tony Blair. It's that funny-looking guy.
Gordon Brown.
Yeah.
Yeah. He came because he was he was Chancellor of the Exchequer, and then he always had prime ministerial ambitions, and then he came in after Tony Blair. But he came in just before the financial crash.
Oh, yeah.
And then I think any leader who came in during that period was kind of doomed to fail,
Okay.
And then he couldn't get the bailouts that he needed, and there was a big. So he didn't last long. I think only 3 years. So.
And generally, what was your opinion of him?
I don't really have an opinion of him, to be honest.
Okay. He was just one, like he came in and he left, and
yeah, I think he was. I wasn't paying much attention.
He was the prime minister when I did my time in London. So I did 2008 to 2012, which was that terrible time to be there.
Yeah.
It was just like, fuck, if you can survive that in London, then you're quite all right.
Yeah.
And then David Cameron came in.
Then David Cameron, he came in through a coalition with the Liberal Democrats.
What was that other guy's name that he called?
Nick Clegg.
Yeah. I thought he was all right.
Yeah.
Or is he...
The thing is, they actually... Liberal Democrats are a funny party because they align themselves to be kind of these liberal left people, but then they voted with all their Tory policies,
Okay.
Like increasing tuition fees and a lot of these things.
Because that happened when I was there.
Yeah.
I think they increased the tuition fees to ridiculous amounts.
Yeah.
Like £10,000 a year type of thing.
Yeah, no, it was exorbitant. And obviously they faced a lot of backlash for that because their whole manifesto during the campaign for the election was we are not going to raise them. They literally did the opposite.
Motherfuckers.
These guys always think no one's going to notice,
But why do they get away with it? Because people don't get involved in civil society. Or like, why are politicians and political parties getting away with shit like that?
It's just hard to hold governments to account, I mean, just coming back to South Africa again, this whole, under the Zuma administration, how we got, public money was looted. But it's just very difficult to do something in real time, because the seat of power is so strong, and the tentacles go, deep into business and special interests. So,
but isn't that just fucking bullshit? You know what I mean?
It is, yeah.
Like, how long? Do you think Jacob Zuma will ever be held accountable for the money he's taken?
I think so, yeah.
But how long will that take? So he enjoys that money for 20 years and then he's held accountable.
Yeah, I mean, I actually read yesterday, Pravin Gordhan said, the Minister of Public Enterprise, they've actually recovered some of the money.
Like how much? 10%?
Yeah, I think it's like 2.1 billion rand or something, he said. So it's a drop in the ocean, but it's,
Okay, so...
That's why
there are people doing something about it.
Yeah, that's why I support President Ramaphosa, because I think he is doing the right thing. It's just going to take a long time.
Yeah.
He's only been there for, 15, 16 months or so. But this is going to take years. It's going to take his whole administration.
Yeah.
The first 5 years,
More than that, probably.
Yeah. Because the effects on the South African economy we're seeing now is due to the looting that happened under the Zuma administration,
Crazy, huh? It's just crazy, like even... it's basically white-collar crime.
Essentially, yeah.
And it's like, I have this discussion a lot with my students, because most of my students are blue-collar workers, if you want to call it that. And we constantly talk about how their bosses is basically stealing from them by not paying their overtime, not following the basic conditions of the Employment Act. And I'm like, it's white-collar crime, and your boss will never spend a day in jail. But if you take 20 rand on the street from someone, you're going to get punished for that.
Yeah.
And it's just crazy to see how they crack down on blue-collar crime, and white-collar crime is a billion times worse.
Yeah.
It's like if you look at the tax avoidance of all these massive corporations,
Yeah, look at
billions of dollars, and if you take 20 rand, if you drive over a stop street at 5 kilometers an hour, they're willing to give.
Yeah, but just look at this whole Steinhoff thing in Stellenbosch, you know. Marcus Jooste, I mean, he's sitting in, you know, Hermanus
somewhere, like.
Yeah, I think he's hiding in Hermanus, actually, is the last I heard. Yeah,
How much money did he steal? Or
yeah, he lost millions, close to a billion.
but did he steal money, or did he just lie about certain money and people invested and now they lost their money?
He cooked the books, essentially, you know.
Okay.
So yeah, it's essentially stealing, you know, not reporting all your revenue, disclosing all your revenue.
Which is tax avoidance, basically.
Yeah. But,
and then a lot of people invested because the books looked amazing or whatever, and bought shares.
Yeah.
And then once they found out, the whole thing collapsed.
Yeah.
And then everyone that invested
Lost all their savings.
but he kept his money.
Yeah.
In a way.
It's exactly the same as coming back to the 2008 crash.
Mm.
You know, none of those bankers have ever gone to jail.
Yeah.
For anything, you know.
What's that movie, The Big Short?
The Big Short. Yeah, I actually watched it the other day.
And there's another one, I think it's called Margin Call with Kevin Spacey.
Mm.
You know, it's like we see this coming.
Yeah.
And it's like, fuck off.
And it's happening again at the moment.
Is it?
There's another recession around the corner, you know.
No way.
Yeah.
Coming from where? Who's
just from mainly European and American kind of hedge fund markets and stuff like that.
Based on the similar principles that the last one happened on? Repackaging all those properties and reselling.
Yeah.
Is it something similar to that?
Yeah, kind of buying, selling people mortgages that they can't afford, you know, and, just feeling this credit bubble, and that people can't actually afford to pay any of it. And then these companies go under.
And somewhere gets really rich.
Yeah.
And he or she will never spend a day in jail.
No. And then, as inequality increases, in terms of the gap of rich and poor, the people at the top have just become richer since 2008, you know. And it's frustrating because you don't really know what you can do about it, you know. These people are bankrupting the economy, but their interests are so vested that it's just difficult to break up that kind of chain.
Because I remember being in London, every time I went to Barclays, I'll be like on the phone or into the bank, you'll do your transaction, and then they'll be like, "Oh, but Mr. Steenkamp, we see that your credit score is really good. Are you sure you don't want to have an extra £25,000?
Yeah.
And it's like, I'm 25 years old. Like, no.
Yeah.
And then I actually told them, can you make a note on your system never to ask me that question again? And they actually didn't, to their credit.
Yeah.
But it's like, I remember at that time there was this whole inquiry into the boss of Barclays. Like, thousands of people lost their jobs across the UK, and then he took over a £2 million bonus that year.
Yeah.
And it's like...
And it's still happening. People don't learn, you know?
And these fuckers don't care.
Yeah.
You know, it's so weird. Like, I train managers. And especially if you listen to Jocko Willink, like leading, caring about your team, setting the standards, setting the example, etc., etc. Like, these guys are completely the opposite. It's all about me.
Yeah.
And I don't care how I get there. And I don't care what's the...
Yeah. I think if you get to that hedge fund level, and big finance, on Wall Street and stuff, it's easy money you just throw around, you don't actually care about the consequences. And you manipulate the stock market in a way, to get what you want. And then if you look at these tax breaks that Trump put in last year, end of 2017, you know, it was billed as kind of a tax break for the middle class and working families, but they're all tax breaks for big corporations. And that's exactly what happened under George W. Bush as well. He also put in tax cuts for wealthy individuals. So it goes down to this whole idea of, you know, trickle-down economics. Yeah.
What does that mean?
So if you keep the money at the top, the wealthy will just invest, and then, you know, the prosperity will sink down because they'll create jobs, and they'll give everyone stable incomes and security and job tenure, and therefore prosperity will just move down from the top. But it hasn't worked that way because all the money stays in the top, whatever you're 1%, 2%, 0.1%.
Yeah.
So it's all bullshit, you know. It's and this has been happening since the 1980s, and yet it's still happening. But I think that's just it's just capitalism doing what it does best, you know, just rewarding.
And is there like a world order Illuminati-based influence that also helps all of this?
No, I don't believe in that. But I think you can. Capital is enough. You know, money is the ruling order. So
you feel it's just the basic principle of greed.
Yeah, I think capitalism is the conspiracy in a way. You know, it's a system that governs pretty much everything in this world. And if you own capital, if you have capital, you can throw things around it and, you know, do things in your favor as much as you like.
And is capitalism connected to democracy?
Ooh, that's a long debate. They would say it is, because capitalism is based on liberalism, the ideology.
Yeah.
Because you get various kind of strains of liberalism.
Because before you continue, like there's elements of communism that I like. And one of those is the avoidance of capitalism, in the sense of the society, the population, the community is seen as the most important.
Yeah.
You know, and you don't have this disparity. Like, there's a lot of listen, I think if you look at Karl Marx, the way he wrote communism originally, it's quite a nice idea. It's the implementation of how people manipulate the system.
It was interpreted by authoritarian regimes as one way, you know.
Yeah.
I think the wrong people got hold of his books.
Smart people got hold of his books.
Yeah, and then they just went haywire with it.
But an extension sometimes of democracy and liberalism is capitalism, and that is to the detriment of the bigger.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think capitalism is very democratic, because it doesn't allow for, it allows rich people to buy their influence, you know. I mean, obviously, this is very kind of simplified.
Yeah, we don't have enough time to cover
examples,
everything.
Yeah, but I'll have to get my textbooks out again. But I think if you just look at the United States, you know, how special interests govern there. I mean, I was in Washington, D.C. a few years ago, and there's a whole street called K Street. And it's just lobbyists, you know, who lobby congressmen and congresswomen and government individuals, senators, to, you know, pass legislation that would be beneficial to their businesses, you know.
Yeah.
And that's not democracy if rich and powerful businesses get to buy their way into policy-making positions.
Yeah.
But a true defender of liberalism and capitalism would say, well, that's the free market, you know, they got there on merit, or they got there on, you know, based on other people's having put them there through consumption or whatever. But I think it's just getting out of control.
Because I think if you look at that Bernie Sanders, or listen to that Bernie Sanders with Rogan, like, it sounds like there are people that really want to help the country, but because of the amount of money coming from corporations, you can't help the people, because at the end, the money will always win good intentions.
Yeah. I mean, I've spent a lot of time in the States, and I like America. It's a fascinating country. Nice, one of the friendliest countries I've been to.
Okay.
Very friendly people. But the amount of money and this capital interest there is quite scary. I mean, there's no you can't really escape it. Everything gets monetized, and every aspect of life is just driven by corporations. And even like a city like New York, it's an amazing city, but if you're there, every street corner is just another Starbucks, or another McDonald's, and it gets too much at a time, and
it's strange. I remember when I went to London, it was the first time that all our textbooks made sense. Because you study capitalism, you study all of these things, and it's like, well, we don't really have that in South Africa. And I remember the tube station embankment next to the Thames.
Yeah.
Like I climbed out, and within 100 meters, I walked past 3 Starbucks.
Okay.
And I was like, okay, now I start getting the idea.
This is capitalism.
This is literally capitalism. And then when I moved to Poland, I was like, okay, this is communism.
Yeah.
Or this is the remnants of communism. And then things started making sense to me. It's like once you start traveling the world, you start seeing the ideologies. But then again, it's just so bullshit. It's about the implementation of the ideology, which I feel like no one is taking this and say, okay, we're moving forward. It's not like I'm choosing the diet and I'm following it.
Yeah.
It's like I'm just taking whatever I want.
Yeah. I mean, in the Western world, the dominant ideology is liberal democracy. This like coming back to capitalism is based on liberalism, on the theory of liberalism. As espoused by I think is like John Stuart Mill and John Locke, and a lot of these guys. Essentially, a free market society where people are compensated on their skill and their contribution to society. Hence, that led to free markets, capitalism, and all this and that. And if you look at most of the Western democracies are based on that. All of them, in fact. England, the UK. The United States, much of South America, much of Europe, South Africa, much of Africa, to be honest. Australia. So it's the dominant ideology. Capitalism rules. But that's obviously come at a price, since so many people are finding that this isn't the best society to live in, given stuff like the financial crisis and inequality. And
I actually want to move back to Poland or one of those countries because of the remnants of communism. I quite like it. We're all equal. We're like, especially if you live here in Cape Town, South Africa, or Stellenbosch, South Africa, like, it's a very strange place to live, where you literally drive 5 kilometers and you see people driving a Bentley and then suddenly someone that doesn't have running water. Yeah. It's like, it's just crazy.
No, the inequality in South Africa is disgusting. It's actually, it's beyond me, how we actually, it's a bit embarrassing, as a white guy sitting here and having had all these privileges bestowed on me, but yet you can do what you can in terms of civil society and stuff, but you still feel like, oh, I should be doing more. Yeah. But then you think, what else can I do? It's
I started my company and I feel like I've done my part, but it's come at a massive burden. So helping out for me, it's a massive burden. I feel good, but it's tiring. Yeah. But I don't want to be like, I feel guilty for being privileged or being born privileged. I don't like that word privilege. I know in America it's a massive word. Yeah. But like, fuck, I can't help I was born how I was born. So how must I be feeling guilty?
Yeah, no, I don't think that's the focus shouldn't be on the fact that you can't help it. I think it's just recognizing your position. Oh yeah. Yeah. And realizing that you can actually do something from the position of privilege, Yeah.
We're basically not going to talk about any of the questions.
My bad.
No, it's also my bad. Like, I have some listeners and they're like, you can never allow people to just, like, you never get to what you want to talk. And I'm like, well, I'm enjoying myself, so I'm loving it. 2 questions that came up for me earlier. Maybe a quick yes or no. HIV, was that a designer thing that came out for conspiracy-wise? Do you think so?
No, I think
Because
it's
that's a natural thing that
yeah,
happens.
that's kind of yeah.
No conspiracy there.
No.
Is there parallels between apartheid and what the black society in America had to go through?
Yeah, the Jim Crow laws and stuff. Yeah,
Very similar.
there the difference is those were state laws. Ours was federal law,
Okay.
and they were real. I think the prosecutions weren't nearly as severe in America as it is here.
Okay.
In America, the Rosa Parks incident, you'll get kicked off the bus for sitting in the front of the bus, but over here you'll get thrown into jail for
Yeah.
having done the same thing. So
Or get a beating.
yeah, our policies were a lot more draconian.
Okay. But we had equally as racist people,
Yeah,
Americans in South Africa.
Yeah.
So like if you look at the stories in the
Yeah.
South,
yeah,
people driving around with the baseball bats on the back of a
Yeah.
pickup truck. Like we had the same year.
I think
But
it's
it's the difference is the official legislation.
yeah, yeah.
Okay. And that's why. And Eduard de Klerk,
Yeah.
was he really worthy of his Nobel Peace Prize?
Oof, I don't know, man.
Because it's a bit like, was it something chosen out of the goodness of his heart or lesser of two evils choice for survival?
I think it kind of had to be bestowed upon him because we were in such a perilous time at that stage. South Africa was on the brink of a civil war, and so we had to, we had to be seen as a unified nation. So I think the Nobel laureates just kind of decided, well, he was the first apartheid president who, made a move into democracy and allowed talks with Nelson Mandela. So he was seen as kind of, part of the solution at that stage. But let's also not forget he was still an apartheid president.
Mm.
And
if he had,
chose to be president under the apartheid regime.
and he, given the opportunity to continue
yeah,
without all the bad repercussions, he would
Yeah.
have continued.
exactly.
So anyone listening, we were born in 85.
Yeah,
So we grew up in a very interesting, I don't want to say strange, but it's a very interesting time where we spent 9 years in apartheid South Africa, which we don't really remember.
officially under apartheid, but it was starting to crumble at that
It's
stage.
a transitional period.
Transitional period. Yeah,
But I looked at some family videos the other day, and it's like you still had a little bit of white kids
yeah,
playgrounds,
yeah. No, absolutely. Yeah,
black kids playgrounds, and then my father's friend commented, yeah, and like today, you can see that we are in the new South Africa, like everyone playing together here, as if it's like, this is very uncomfortable. Like
running commentary on the political situation.
yeah, it's like, fucking hell, it was at Stellenbosch. And
Yeah.
I remember being 12 years old and the first time a colored person came into our school. It's like you had 3 colored people. And again, if anyone listens, colored is the politically correct phrase
Yeah,
in South Africa, where overseas you'll say mixed race, but colored
Yeah.
is a specific race. And that was weird. And then, so 9 years, it was a little bit of that. And then we went into democracy.
Yeah.
And we grew up with a completely different political system from our parents, people older than us. Just very strange.
yeah. I mean, to be honest, I can't remember much of the political system during the late 80s. I remember you're obviously aware of it, but I was 5-6 years old at the time, and
I had
couldn't
one
fathom
of
everything.
I heard one of the most racist things yesterday that I heard in a long time, which was someone asked me, why do I want to have kids? Because I really want to have kids. And I explained to him, like, I love my wife. I feel like it's a natural progression, etc., etc. He's like, no, I'm just checking because I heard a few reasons from some people recently. And the one guy doesn't really want to have kids, but he's like, there's such a big difference between the whites and the blacks at the moment from a population point of view. So he feels like he should get a kid just to like start balancing out
That's
more
bad.
white people. I was like, geez,
That's bad.
that is
Yeah.
fucking rough, man. But anyway, so we still have a lot of that.
No, there's a growing like right-wing nationalist trend in South Africa at the moment, which I'm quite concerned about.
Is it?
Yeah, a lot of people who don't accept the fact that we are a majority black country and that we have a black kind of government, and they feel that they are being marginalized, which is not true at all,
But aren't we being marginalized? I know we're going to go into a little bit of South Africa, but one of a couple of essays that I did at university is affirmative action reverse discrimination, and it's a policy that's been implemented in a variety of places, and I think generally it doesn't work just due to the implementation. I think the thought process behind it is beautiful and amazing, but it's obviously the implementation of it. And I remember one of the things I struggled most with coming back from Europe was job applications and the disheartening feeling of I can't apply for this job due to it saying EE or AA for employment equity or for affirmative action. And it really hurt my feelings because I lived in a place where I feel I can do this job, I can apply.
Yeah. The whole concept of meritocracy.
And it's just like, at least give me an interview.
Yeah.
Maybe you think that I'm going to be best and maybe I come in and I help the society in a better way that someone else could.
Yeah.
So I feel that that's one of the reasons why I started my own company, because I applied for 150 jobs and I couldn't get anything. So I was like, fuck, I've got to start my own company because there's no income for me here, although my family's from here. So I feel like in a way we are being marginalized to a certain degree, but then again, do we deserve it? I always want to say to my parents, if anyone that was born before 85 complains about the economic situations, about you fucks caused this.
Yeah.
You're not allowed to complain. What did you do 50 years ago in civil society?
Yeah.
Were you joining the protest? Were you trying to change the system? And if you weren't, then fuck you, your retirement's going to be a little bit difficult. I don't know if that's a fair...
Yeah, I've got a different view of affirmative action. I don't think it's designed to say this person of color is better at the job than you are. I think it's just designed to say, listen, these guys are also here, so consider them, because for so many years they weren't being considered under apartheid.
Even if they're not equally as good as you.
I don't really have a comment on that. I think businesses do generally pick the right people for that. And I think there are a lot of smart black people in this country who haven't had the chance and still don't get the chance to exercise their skills, in a professional setting. So I don't think affirmative action is designed to be detrimental to white individuals. I think it is designed to just give a space for people of color to breathe and just say, we are also here to apply for jobs, where for so many years they weren't even being considered,
But at which point do you say, okay, they've been given the opportunity? Because technically it's been a whole generation now. And at which point do you revert back to we are all equal?
I don't know. I'll have to put some thought in that.
It's like, let's say there was 70 years of apartheid, where one race was put above another one. Do you say for 70 years we've got to do affirmative action? And then technically for me, my interpretation, affirmative action means we are not all equal. Because certain people are given better opportunities than others. It's not based on an open application process. So at which point do you... And I understand from an economic point of view, we've got to get more people that have income. So it's better for tax.
It is designed as a similar, as a sort of a redress policy. But
again, like I say, I think it's beautiful, affirmative action and the concept, and whoever came up with it. It's the implementation. And I think the main argument is, me and you are equally good.
Yeah.
Please, you as a colored person, please take the job. I'm very cool for that. Yeah. But if I am better, i.e. skills, capabilities, intellect, experience, background, why should I not get it? Yeah. So, and like I say, there are a lot of people. I just think the recruitment selection side is not getting the people of color in. So they're getting a lot of, I don't know.
Yeah.
It's a very,
I
feel like hairy.
That should be the employer's kind of,
onus.
I don't have really have a comment on that as to why people aren't getting a job.
Yeah, I still feel like most of the money is with white people.
Absolutely,
so fuck them.
Yeah, we are very much. And I think we don't really see as much of the success of black-owned businesses in Cape Town.
No.
I think it's all up in Johannesburg, you know.
Yeah.
And I've been to Johannesburg, and it's a vastly different place than Cape Town. You know,
Yeah.
it's fascinating. It's more integrated. It feels like the real South Africa. You feel like you're part of kind of a more whole society. You know, because the integration is somewhat stronger than down here in Cape Town.
Yeah. Yeah. And then where I live in Stellenbosch, which is 50 kilometers that way, it's even worse.
Yeah.
You know, it's like
Wit Afrikaner dorp.
and it's crazy because then you go to the neighboring towns of Strand, Somerset West, Gordons Bay, Wellington, Paarl, and all the waiters that I train who are Zimbabwean, Malawians, or Xhosa people, they all say 98% of my clientele in the restaurant is white. And of that 98%, 70% are Afrikaans. And out of that Afrikaans demographic, 10% refuse to speak English to me.
Okay.
They say, please go get me an Afrikaans waiter.
Yeah.
Which is, it's crazy to think that you still live in that type of society. But each to their own.
Yeah. No, I think there are lots of elements in that. I mean, I don't want to kind of paint a broad picture here, but I think a lot of the small towns up in the north and these places, you know, there's a lot more conservative than we are used to down here in Cape Town, you know.
Yeah.
And I think, you know, South Africa is a very, very different world in many ways in terms of. So it's actually a lot like America, you know. You can get your small conservative right-wing Afrikaans towns. It's like you get
like the redneck motherfuckers.
South, and you're gonna get your more, you know, cosmopolitan cities. Yeah.
And it's, I don't know, I'm gonna probably move on from this topic because it's difficult for me to talk about it. I don't like it, and I don't know if anyone wants to listen to this.
Yeah, remember we're two white guys speaking about, you know.
Yeah, but I don't believe in that. Like, I believe that anyone can talk about anything, but it's difficult for me to talk about it in the sense of it's a loaded topic. And I do feel like I grew up different. I grew up with black people. Like, my work is with the black community. I would say about 5 to 10% of my work is involved with white people. So I'm very immersed in it, and I find it difficult to talk about this topic because I understand the struggle still. And the big part of my work is trying to get people up. But it's so difficult because education and intellect and IQ helps me. If you have intellect, education, and IQ, I can help you better. It makes it easier for me to help you.
Yeah.
And if you don't have that, it becomes very difficult. And a lot of people don't have that because of the history. Their parents didn't have that. Their grandparents didn't have that. So finally, they were born into a society that allows for that. But due to financial shortcomings from generations, they couldn't finance themselves for that.
No, that's why we need free education in this country, yeah? I believe.
And where does that come from?
From the state?
And where do they get the money?
From the rich guys.
Fuck them. Is it similar then to Monaco, where you really tax the rich people?
Yeah, Monaco doesn't tax
Or
the
is
rich
that
people.
not? That, sorry, Monaco is it's France that taxes the really rich, and it's
They
Monaco that.
used to, but
and then Monaco was like, you don't get taxed here.
yeah, Macron actually reduced the tax rates for wealthiest income, so because he's a banker guy.
But why would he do that?
Because he wanted to please his business base. The Scandinavian countries are high tax, big spend countries.
But they get away with it because of the small populations that they have.
I
It's
guess
a
so. And
sustainable. It's a sustainable.
It's really efficient government there.
Yeah.
So social democracy. you
I
know?
would move there if it wasn't for the winters.
Yeah. Looks beautiful there, though.
It looks amazing. Plus, the language isn't that difficult to learn.
Yeah.
And it's just the way they operate. The open-mindedness from government to do research, take science, and okay, let's go check this out. I love that.
Yeah.
So tax rich.
But you know, like in Cape Town, I mean, in South Africa, a few years ago, 2-3 years ago, and it's still ongoing. There's this whole fees must fall campaign.
Yeah.
at UCT and at Rhodes University. I think elements of it at Wits University as well.
Yeah.
Where-
Even at Stellenbosch University.
Exactly. Yeah.
And
then-
you agree with that?
I think so. Yeah.
Again, you agree with the policy, not the way they're going about it.
Yeah, I don't condone violence or destruction.
Yeah.
I think the principle is correct.
But how do you go about that to achieve your goal of fees must fall?
You just make the fees fall.
Oh, but let's say me and you, two random motherfuckers,
Yeah.
we want to get involved with civil society.
Yeah.
Like, how do you go about achieving this goal?
You put pressure on government to adopt certain policies
But how do you put pressure on them?
through actions like fees must fall.
Like marches.
Marches, talks, non-violent means, because violent means never get anyone's attention.
Okay. It gets media's attention.
It gets media,
But not government.
It's sensationalist, but I don't believe in violence at all. I don't think it's ever justified. But yeah, through organizing groups. I mean, the key word is organizing. Just getting together in groups and holding meetings, holding talks, holding constructive discussions, involving the whole population. Getting a wealthy businessman in and saying perhaps you would, have to pay more tax.
Yeah.
In order for us to fund some social democratic program.
Yeah.
Instead of them just saying, "Oh, I'm going to take all my money out of the country and this and that." That's they always threaten that, don't they? I'm going to go invest somewhere else. Okay.
Which is
But
weird.
they never do.
I had a chat with Janeman like a month ago, and I spoke to him about if I was super rich. I don't know, because I'll never be super rich. But I was like, he asked me, if you were super rich, what would you do with your money? I was like, well, I believe a certain amount you should invest in creating a better life for other people. Why should you just leave the money to lie somewhere?
Yeah.
Let's say you have $1 billion lying somewhere. Why don't you take 100 kids and educate them? Why don't you build something for someone? But again, I was raised in that way. To think about other people.
Altruism, just kind of making sure your money goes to good causes. I guess it's charity in a way,
Yeah, I don't like charity. I got involved with a few NGOs and I fucking hated it.
Yeah,
I don't feel it's a sustainable model.
I think it perpetuates a system that needs change. I think charities just plaster over the change.
Yeah.
For temporary, periods.
Yeah.
I do believe some people try to do good. I mean, I'm not going to bemoan Bill Gates. I think he's obviously donating all his fortune to stuff is a great cause. But I just think the problem is people amassing that amount of wealth in the first place. Instead of those, instead of governments not taking some of the wealth and putting it into fundamental programs.
Yeah.
That don't require charity from private individuals.
Yeah, it's like how much money did Amazon, Apple, Samsung save on registering the company in a certain place?
And then they don't even pay tax. Amazon paid 0 income tax last year.
Nothing.
No
way. Even this, what's the guy, Jeremy Epstein, or...
The guy committed suicide 2 weeks ago.
Yeah, it's funny how I saw that $577 million was put in a trust fund 2 days before he committed suicide to protect it.
Yeah, a lot of theories are involved in that thing.
Yeah, that would be fascinating to know what was actually happening there.
Yeah, I mean, I think the guy did commit suicide. I think, but
Okay.
I think just the stuff around it, the all the rich and famous people who might be involved in his
Prince Albert, or who's the guy?
Prince Charles's brother. I think it's Prince Edward, isn't it?
Yeah, someone there.
Yeah.
There's a lot of dodgy shit going on there.
I know there's a lot
Bill Gates. Not Bill Gates, Bill Clinton.
A lot of names being thrown around. And Trump was also a big guy. to hang around with.
I don't know. Let's not go into that because that's speculation. Let's get back to question 2, which we So I'm not going to go into political science because I think people obviously have an idea of what we're talking about. Is it officially a science? Would you say it is official science? School of thought?
Yeah, it can be classified as science. You can study behavioral patterns amongst individuals and populations. Yeah,
And it's proven.
yeah.
You
If you have a good hypothesis, you can write a good study on it.
Okay. And I think we've a little bit covered what's the use for governments and individuals and stuff. But I want to go into Brexit because I don't understand Brexit 100%, but it will influence me to a certain degree if my wife's European. I'm planning on getting my European passport.
Yeah.
And that I won't maybe be able to get into the UK. So exactly what does Brexit mean? And why are they pushing for this?
Okay, so the background to Brexit is kind of there was a split within the Conservative Party in the UK, the Tories.
Okay.
Between some of the more right-wing elements and some of the more liberal elements, I could say. And some of the people on the right, which is right this way, were saying, we want a referendum on whether the UK should be part of Europe, because they felt that the EU, the European Union, and the European Parliament were making too many laws that affected England and the UK as a whole. And they were concerned about migration figures and too many people coming into the country and using the services. And obviously there were kind of Islamic phobic elements connected to it. You know, they felt that too many people from Islamic countries were coming in and this was causing terrorism and stuff, all unfounded. But then they decided, okay, so we need to have a referendum on this to decide the country's future. And obviously the more liberal wing of the Conservative Party said, no, we don't want to do that. And they were called Remainers, and the other guys were called Brexiteers, Leavers. And David Cameron was the Prime Minister at that stage in 2016. 2016. And then he called the referendum, and then it all went haywire.
And referendum is people...
The public voting on, a simple yes or no question. Should we stay in the EU, yes or no? And then they voted no. And David Cameron was actually a guy who campaigned to stay in the European Union.
Okay.
So as soon as the result came in, he resigned the next day. As obviously, having dragged the country into this process and then having lost his battle, and then Theresa May took over.
Same political party, but she took over. Yeah.
And now she's gone as well. She left last month.
Why?
Because these Brexit negotiations have just been
a nightmare.
Because the European Union have given the UK a deal, which would allow for free trade and free movement of people. But then the MPs...
Free trade means tax incentives
or trading with the European Union, like within the customs union.
Okay.
So Norway is a good example. That Norway is a country that's allowed to trade within the customs union of the European Union, but they're not bound by EU law. They've kind of opted out of that. I don't know too much of the background to go into that fully, but the UK is seeking a similar relationship with the European Union. But so the EU gave a deal to Theresa May when she went to Brussels. She made numerous trips to Brussels, and then every time she goes back to the UK Parliament for this deal to be voted on, they rejected the deal, saying, well, this is not actually what we want. The EU are making too many of their own promises, and they're taking matters into their own hands. Yeah. We're not getting enough of a say on this deal. And then she got defeated, I think it was 3 or 4 times. And then after a certain amount of time, she left. She resigned. Just 3 weeks ago or so.
And then Boris Johnson is the same political party.
Yeah.
And now he's Prime Minister.
Yeah.
And when's the next general election?
They don't know yet. Because England can call elections like that.
Okay.
They can call one.
But who decides that? Parliament?
The British Prime Minister. So Boris will decide. But he'll only decide if he feels he's in a strong enough position to win that.
So can he say, okay,
election.
in 10 years from now?
No, they've got a fixed 5-year Parliament Act.
Okay.
So every 5 years there are elections. But if
So within the next 5 years?
yeah, but
Or is that from Prime Minister taking office or the political party taking office?
the political party taking office,
Okay.
because they've had 3 prime ministers in the past 3 years already.
All right.
Just nuts. But a good example of that is Theresa May called an election in 2017,
Yeah.
and then she lost 100 seats in parliament because she thought the position was strong,
Okay.
because she wanted a mandate as a new prime minister.
Okay.
And then she didn't lose the government, but she lost a lot of seats.
Okay. And which affects you to then have policies approved.
Yeah,
It's similar to, I think, the Senate
yeah,
also having seats
Yeah.
between the Democrats and Republicans, and then you can lose seats, and then and we in South Africa
It's-
also have seats.
yeah. It's a parliamentary system where if you have more people on your side and more people to vote with you, you're gonna
Yeah.
get your stuff through, your policies through, your legislation. And so Theresa May lost most of her battles with the EU because her own party actually voted it down, and EU and Labour members. And then now Boris came in, and Boris is a hard Brexiteer. He wants to leave the European Union because the new deadline is the 31st of October this year.
But why do they want to leave so badly?
Because they want to get their own independence back, and they want to be.
But isn't it
Great
racism
Britain.
a big part of it? Because
Racism is a big part of it.
one of the reasons why I will never go live in England again is because of the undercurrent, subtle racism.
Yeah.
I just never felt like I became part of the furniture there. There's this undercurrent, like you're from Africa, you'll never be part of us, which is so ironic because you as the British Empire went everywhere.
Yeah.
And due to that, you have all the foreigners here.
Yeah.
It's your own fault. Fuck
Yeah.
you.
Yeah.
So I feel like there's a big, strong, like you say, conservative right-wing element that calls
Yeah,
Brexit.
very much. And then the biggest campaigner for Brexit was Nigel Farage.
Oh yeah? Is he an idiot?
Yeah, I think he's an idiot. It depends.
He-
I mean, he's a skilled retail politician, you know.
Okay.
But yeah, his views are far to the right, and
Okay.
his party was UK Independence Party,
All right.
who've been fighting this battle for independence for 10 years, and they were a
Okay.
big influence on the Conservative Party actually calling this referendum,
Okay.
because the Conservative Party were also afraid of losing members to the UK Independence Party,
All right.
losing voters essentially, you know.
And at the same time that this Brexit has been going on, Scottish independence has also been going on.
Yeah. They voted on Scottish independence in 2014,
Okay.
and then they voted no.
That they don't want to be independent.
Yeah.
Do you think they should have gone independent? Or there's too many advantages being part of the UK?
Yeah, I think there's too many advantages being
Yeah.
part of the UK.
And is there too many advantages to be part of the EU?
Yeah, but Scotland has kind of made, noises, that they might want to have a second referendum if the UK falls out without a deal.
Okay.
Okay, so the big thing now is that it's like that TV game show, deal or no deal. So the UK are either going to leave the European Union with a deal or without a deal.
Okay.
And that's on the 31st of October.
So they're definitely leaving.
They're definitely leaving. I mean, that's what Boris is saying.
Brexit's definitely happening.
That's what they keep on saying. Brexit means Brexit. That was Theresa May's famous line. But a lot of the Labour Party don't want to leave the European Union. The Liberal Democrats don't want to leave the European Union. So I don't know if they
And Parliament decides if this is happening or not.
have to decide on a deal. Yeah.
Okay, so it's did the people decide that this is happening? Or did Parliament decide that this is happening?
The people decided Brexit is happening, but the Parliament have to decide on what deal is happening.
Okay, so the people decided, but Parliament decides on how we're leaving, basically.
No.
So we definitely seeing a Brexit.
Yeah, at this
And they want to
stage.
do it in 4 weeks from now.
Yeah, well, it's 8 weeks.
Fuck.
No, almost 4 weeks, you're right? Yeah, it's almost
Yeah.
end of August, isn't it? Yeah. Yeah.
So Boris Johnson's going to be quite a famous prime minister because he's going to be the one that was part of the transition there.
Yeah, but
From-
it depends if the transition is a success or not.
Yeah, but either way,
Yeah.
he's going to be quite famous, I think. He was the mayor of London when I was there,
Mm.
and he was famous as being this weird,
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
So, but you think they should stay?
I think so,
And
yeah.
why?
it's just going to be detrimental to their standing in terms of, I mean, on an economic level, definitely, because you're going to get less people coming to the UK, and you're going to have less European workers coming into the UK, because they still haven't finalized any deal about free movement of people.
Okay.
So, people aren't sure if they're going to be allowed to stay in the UK, if they are going to be forced to leave, or they'll be able to go back to the UK.
And it's like, isn't it good to have all these foreigners working?
Yeah, you think so, yeah?
Because they're paying taxes. The locals are lazy motherfuckers on the dole.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know how many people on the dole.
They are.
Yeah.
I know there's foreigners taking liberties with the dole. I live with a German guy that was living on the dole because after 10 years of living in the UK, he's got his citizenship.
Yeah.
And then he went on to the dole. And he was like a qualified architect. And we had a massive argument. I'm like, dude, I'm working myself to death, paying a fuckload of tax.
Yeah.
And you sitting here watching TV every day. It's like, what the fuck? So I just said to him, like, so there are a lot of people like that. And I feel like there's a lot of jobs being done by foreigners because the locals wouldn't do it.
Yeah.
And it's good. They're paying tax. I think America's also really good with that. I heard from some Americans that the government, once you get into the United States and you get a job, it's quite easy to get a work permit because if they fast track that, you start paying tax as soon as possible.
Yeah.
So rather than, like, obviously they fight people coming in, but once you're in, it's like, start paying tax.
Yeah. No, there's obviously a big immigration crisis happening in America at the moment as well. You have Trump with the border detention facilities. And
I'm flying in 2 weeks, so I'm super stressed out. Some people said I've got to shave my beard to make sure I get through customs.
Yeah. So these are people coming from South America, and they're being held in detention centers at the border, along Texas and in those areas.
That is just crazy, man.
There's a big crackdown on illegal immigration in America.
And then the wife is opposing that, the first lady.
Yeah.
And then the husband, I don't know. That is just a strange couple, that for me.
Yeah.
That's one of those ladies, like, I think she doesn't want to be there, but the advantages of being the first lady.
Now she's there.
I'm going to move on. Did your university degree prepare you for your real-world political science experiences?
I mean, it gives you a basic knowledge, yeah. And it teaches you critical thinking skills and, allows you to see other viewpoints and perspectives. And I'm fascinated about how society works, as a whole.
Yeah.
In terms of, economic systems, legal systems,
And you did PPE, which stands for Politics, Philosophy, and Economics. Yeah. Did you have sociology as well?
I did not know.
Would you have liked that?
Yeah, I mean, I did some elements of sociology. Yeah.
Okay. And did philosophy help you?
Yeah, philosophy is good. I like philosophy. Yeah.
Okay.
Absolutely. Because you can have, decide. It just teaches you a way of thinking, And on moral issues and ethical issues.
And does it teach you how to communicate your views in a healthy way?
Yeah. I mean, a lot of famous people were philosophers. Someone like Karl Marx was a philosopher, and so they kind of interpret the world that they see and apply their own remedies, so to speak, or their own interpretations through their writing. Which I find quite fascinating,
Yeah.
And obviously there's a whole new breed of philosophers, in terms,
But who's the current philosophers?
I mean,
Isn't it becoming more difficult due to there's already so much knowledge and wisdom out there?
Yeah, it's just kind of how you interpret that knowledge, I guess,
Okay.
I mean, on some of the more, we spoke about Jordan Peterson. He's like the new guy on the block, I'm not a big fan of his.
Sam Harris or what?
Sam Harris, but Sam Harris is a neuroscientist, I guess, so he's quite versed in kind of medical and philosophical matters.
Yeah.
And they get Slavoj Žižek, who's like kind of a left-wing guy. And then people like Noam Chomsky is a bit of a philosopher. I mean, he's a linguist by trade, but he's got philosophical thought elements to him.
And quickly about Jordan Peterson. I like him just because I like anyone that can have a strong opinion.
He's got very strong opinions.
I love it. The reason why I started liking him is not so much about his opinions. It was that people attacked him and how calm he stayed while he was being attacked. And I was like, I really like that. I wish I could be like that. And then I was like, okay, let me start hearing what this guy's got to say.
Okay.
And then some of it is like, I don't disagree with it. I don't agree with it. But there are a lot of stuff that I quite like.
Yeah.
And I think it's necessary for someone to push that far against the other push from the other side.
Yeah.
But why don't you like him so much?
He's got very kind of regressive views on stuff like gender, and I think he doesn't always recognize the oppression of certain groups in society in the past, and just kind of says, well, if you're good enough you can do this, but not realizing that some people have been had a ceiling above them, for a long time, be it women or people of color, or gay people, or in this current context, Muslim people. I think a lot of Muslim people are also facing a lot of discrimination because of stuff like 9/11 and
discrimination based on dress code,
just dress code,
what food they eat, whatever.
But the burqas they wear, or things like that, which is.
But is he I feel sometimes that he's not against that. He's just against governments forcing him or forcing society that this is how we're going to go forward. If that makes sense. I think he's against. What I understand is like the pronoun issue. He's like, I don't want someone to tell me which pronoun I'm supposed to use. As a free individual, I'm supposed to be able to choose whichever I want.
But shouldn't the individual who he is speaking to then also have the freedom to allow or to choose what they want to be called?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I sometimes feel like in real world, if he speaks to someone and that person says, please call me on this pronoun, I feel like he might do it. But it's just like if government is now going to decide for all of us what to do, I'm going to fight against that. I don't know.
Yeah. But remember,
without talking to him, it will be difficult.
But remember, like a government doesn't exist in a vacuum. A government is put there by voters.
Yeah.
So there's a democratic process that goes through, that people have to go through in order to get there.
Yeah.
So if people run on a campaign of saying this is what we want, or this is, and more people vote for that, then that government has legitimacy to put certain policies in place.
Yeah, I know. But what if you don't, as an individual, agree with it, with the majority?
Then you have to find someone you want to vote for.
It's just like, what happened to me the other day? It's like I went climbing a mountain. And I'm like, this belongs to the government. And it's just a weird thing that every single piece of earth belongs to someone.
Yeah.
Everything is regulated and governed by either an individual who owns the property or an institution that owns the acres, or even the government is like, this falls within our region and this is now ours.
Public and private spaces.
And I'm like, I don't know, it's just weird. Like, why can't I walk 3 kilometers into the middle of nowhere and that's mine or that's everyone's? Like, why is it the government's? It's a very strange concept for me.
Yeah.
So, I don't know.
I mean, places like the beach is public places,
But you can't do what you want to do there.
No, because we live in a society where you have to abide by rules.
And that's what I'm saying. It's like, it's just weird that there are like the majority's rules fall as this is now the rules.
Yeah.
I find that strange sometimes.
Yeah.
But I understand it.
But that's the voting process. I mean, that's the political process making itself kind of visible in a very kind of tangible sense, where a certain policy is allowed to go through in some ways.
Yeah.
Because people voted for it, But
if you say the majority rule, do you know what is the voter turnout for, let's say, for the general election for South Africa, for the United States, for Brexit.
I think it was quite low in South Africa. I think it was like 62% or something. Yeah.
And do you know for the other countries?
I think around the same. It's
So-
usually between 60 and 65%,
Okay.
which is, just over half, which is not great.
No.
No,
I fall into one of those arsehole categories.
we don't vote.
I've never, and it's like, it's even worse considering that I've studied politics and I understand the importance of participation, even if it's futile.
Yeah.
But there are mitigating factors due to being abroad, being disconnected, being young and immature. But it would be fascinating. I think democracy would be fascinating if you had 95% voter turnout. Because then it's legitimate majority rule.
It's like in Australia where they fine you if you don't vote.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How awesome is that?
I don't know if I agree with that. I don't think you should be forced to vote.
Well, if they force you to stop in the middle of fucking nowhere at 12 o'clock at night at a red light,
Yeah.
why can't they force you to vote? Because at least that is constructive.
Yeah. I just think if there's no one you want to vote for, then you shouldn't have to vote.
But can't you put like a...
But then the onus is on you to, create an environment of policies that you would like to see
Yeah.
enacted, or that you would be glad to support.
I think they should make it... not only should they make it like we'll send you to jail if you don't vote, but you have to attend 5 seminars
Yeah.
on each political party.
Yeah.
And really
Exactly,
figure
yeah,
out what each one wants to do.
Provide some. Yeah, if you say I don't want to vote, then that's fine. We're not going to fine you, but then provide the people with some classes or some civic, discussions on how society is run and how they would maybe like to see it run, and create some kind of group, where people want to be more engaged instead of being, I don't want to vote for this person or that person.
And do you think most voting processes are, how can I say, legitimate? There's no throwing away little ballots, manipulating electronic systems.
Yeah, I don't know there might be elements of that. I mean, remember in the United States, this whole thing about Russian bots influencing elections and stuff.
Yeah.
But, at the end of the day, people still voted with their own hands, They might have been influenced by a certain Facebook ad and things like that.
Yeah.
No.
But you don't think that we get these little paper ballots and we can trust that they counted that correctly?
Yeah, because especially in this country, the IEC are an independent body, so they're not affiliated with any political party.
But can we trust them really?
Yeah, I mean, I do.
Okay.
Yeah.
And are they involved, let's say, for example, in the United States or in other countries, or are they just purely South African?
Yeah, purely South African. I mean, obviously, each country has its own independent body of electoral, commissions.
Okay.
I'm not too clued up about all of them. I know in America they have the electoral college.
Yeah.
So that's.
They have a weird political system, man.
Yeah.
I don't know. I like what Joe Rogan says. It's like, why are you using a system from 200 years ago? It's like, we're not living in the same era.
That's what's funny about America. They're like this very outward-looking nation, but they're also very regressive, very old school.
The Second Amendment, Second Amendment. I'm like, Jesus, there's not bears running around eating people anymore. No. Do you really deserve a gun? Because 200 years ago in certain areas, you know what I mean? I'm like, it's so weird how they take thoughts, which was fucking before electricity.
Yeah.
And it's like we still got it. That's also some of the things with. I'm not maybe not. It's a thing for me about religion. I had a debate with someone the other day. I'm like, listen. At the end of the day, if I fall underneath your religious umbrella, we share a lot of the same beliefs.
Yeah.
Although I don't believe the umbrella should be there, but I believe in treat everyone equal, love your neighbor, etc., etc. But I'm like, what's strange for me is that you're willing to follow a system that's from 2,000 years ago. The thought processes are from 2,000 years ago. The way it was intended, plus the do you really believe that all the stories are original? And do you think...
Are you talking about the stories in the Bible?
Well, I'm just saying
Whatever,
about
yeah.
anything that's been written 2,000 years ago. Do you think nothing's been changed? Nothing's been manipulated? Don't you think that greed's always been there since the beginning of man? And that anything, can you accept it at face value? I just find that as a interesting discussion.
Yeah.
And the reason why I always have an opinion on religion is because in the area that I live, people very quickly tell you they're religious. I don't know, if you live in conservative areas, you'll almost be like, hi, I'm David. How are you? Hi, I'm Stephen. Oh, which church do you go to?
Yeah.
And it's like, so I always talk about religion
It's part of
because
your
people,
identity.
people talk to me about it. So I'm like, cool, let's go.
Yeah.
And they don't like it when I start talking. This guy was flushing in his face.
Opening a can of worms.
And I was like, okay, well, you shouldn't have come to me with it. Anyway, we're getting a bit sidetracked there. Or me, I'm getting a bit sidetracked.
Sam Harris is good to listen to about religion.
Yeah.
Again, I don't agree with everything he says, but he's got interesting. At least he's talking about it, Which is nice sometimes.
I like I think it was him that said that IQ gives you an unfair advantage these days. In the sense of, let's say you lived 100 years ago. Let's say muscles gave you an unfair advantage because then you could hunter-gatherer, you were just better.
Yeah.
And your IQ didn't really help you that much, where nowadays IQ really helps you to get an advantage over your neighbor, your brother, which I think is an interesting concept.
Yeah. I don't actually know enough about IQ.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's something that I was forced to look into due to my daily challenges with people. And over 2 years, I didn't understand why I had all these challenges with people. Why can't I help them? And I was like, I've got to look deeper. So I looked at culture, which it's normally my starting point with why am I struggling with people?
Okay.
Because there's cultural differences.
Like a barrier.
Yeah, like for example, in certain black cultures, you're not allowed to look people in the eye because it's disrespectful. Where my culture is the opposite.
Okay.
In certain cultures, you're not allowed to say no to your boss.
Yeah.
Because it's disrespectful. So I'll be like, in my military background, do you understand me? Are we moving forward? Yes, boss. Yes, chef.
Yeah.
And then they stay quiet. In certain cultures, you say to someone, I need you to do this. Do you understand me? And they'll be like, yes. And 4 hours later, they're still looking at that piece of equipment and trying to figure it out.
Okay.
Because they're not allowed to say, I don't know. So I always start with, what is your culture? But then even me understanding the culture, I still had challenges working with certain people. And my goal is to try and elevate you from earning 3,000 Rand a month to more so that you can have good education for yourself, for your children, financial support, maybe move into an area that's safe, running water, like all of that. So I look at how can I get people there? And then I'm like, education is a big part.
Yeah. No, absolutely, yeah.
Language is a big part. But even then, certain people with certain education, language, there's still a general intellect problem. And I think IQ, and then I was just like, because of my beliefs of equality, we all equal. I never wanted to accept that some people are smarter than others.
Yeah.
But then I've come to realize, in my own opinion, which might change, that some people are smarter than other people. Some people's IQ, some people's mental capabilities are different.
Yeah, not everyone can be a neuroscientist,
It's easy for me to say that guy is faster than me.
Yeah.
So it's easy for me to say that guy is smarter than me. Like, I think it's legitimate.
Yeah, no, absolutely, yeah.
But IQ is definitely fascinating.
Yeah.
Anyway, I don't want to talk too much about that because I am not.
I haven't read up too much about IQ. I don't actually know how it always gets measured. I know you get the IQ test, but I'm not clued up about exactly what it measures.
Yeah, they say certain IQ tests are quite biased.
Yeah.
Culturally, I know there was a very controversial thing that came out, I think, a year or 2 years ago, about IQ and different. I think Asians are the highest.
Okay.
And they said that Africans are the lowest, black Africans.
Oh.
And then it goes into Jewish and to, Caucasian and stuff, and it was very controversial.
Yeah, it sounds very common. Yeah.
So
I know there was a guy in the United States called Charles Murray,
okay,
and he wrote this famous book called The Bell Curve. And I think in that book he actually states that black people had less IQ, and it was like a massive controversy, and like but it was unproven science. He just kind of made it up, because he, in his bias, white people were superior, and he just used extremely dodgy science to kind of make his point, and looking back at it now, that book did not age well at all, Yeah.
So I don't know, man. Like that's a like I say, I'm. Please don't listen to my opinions on IQ.
I'll read up some more. We can have another chat about IQ.
Yeah. So I've got 3 questions left. Which political system do you like most around the world? If you could choose a country whose political system you like, which one would you choose? And what would you say is your own personal ideology? And then just what's your opinion about South Africa's current political climate and our future?
Okay. In the current kind of setup, I like the social democratic states, Scandinavia, Norway. I think they've got the best at the moment. I'm not saying it is the best, but I think in terms of their welfare state and their market kind of oriented business environment, it seems the most kind of pleasing to both sides. I'm actually a bit more of a socialist.
Okay.
In terms of not having government own everything, but having more workers' control over production, and kind of like the true Marxist tradition, I guess. And I think a lot of that has become a lot more relevant if you see how a lot of workers are being exploited, especially by the likes of Amazon. A lot of these companies, I
read something that they've got GPS on some of their workers, and if you stand still for 5 minutes, like somebody gets a notification that you're standing still for 5 minutes. Shit like that.
It's crazy, yeah. And some workers in Apple, I think it's Apple in China,
yeah.
Right? I mean, extremely high suicide rates and stuff like that.
I read something that the amount of interns they take between the ages of 15 and 18 that suddenly work 70-hour or 60-hour work weeks.
That's scary, huh?
Unpaid interns that are in high school working 50 to 70 hours, and then it's like, but we helping them into the job market.
Yeah.
And I'm like, these dodgy motherfuckers.
This is why I read a lot of Karl Marx. I think what he wrote has actually come true, A lot of the exploitation and the excess amount of capital being concentrated in a certain amount of hands, the 1%, if you want to put it that way. And just the way workers are being treated around the world, he predicted all this stuff.
And when did he write these?
In the 1800s,
No way.
Yeah.
So he was really smart.
Yeah. People always say, his ideas were so bad and this and that, but his main idea was a scientific understanding of how capital works, He didn't say go put people in gulags. That was people's interpretation of it. It's his contribution was purely understanding how capital operates, and I think he's been proven right about how capital operates, But I still think under socialism, you're still going to have markets. I don't think it's going to be government control. I think markets existed before socialism, before capitalism. It will continue to exist afterwards, going from the mercantilist days. I think that's what the human nature is. It is to trade and to, exchange goods. So I think we will never have a pure socialist system whereby government owns everything. It will still be workers, but it will be workers controlled, as opposed to having the big boss, taking all the money and saying everything is my way.
Yeah, it's just so fascinating because there's arguments for and against everything.
Yeah, that's what makes.
I've been involved with certain projects, and I'm like, the best solution for this project is to be less democratic, have an authoritarian that comes in, but a healthy authoritarian.
Like benevolent dictatorship.
And I'm like, that would just like streamline this whole project, and it will be best for everyone. But because we're democratic, because we don't believe in that, we're going to take this long, strenuous approach, and we're really never going to get where we want to be.
Yeah.
And I'm like, there's positives and negatives about everything. But it's again, who's the authoritarian? Like if Mandela was an authoritarian with all his principles, wouldn't that be nice?
Yeah. Just like, this is our way.
I don't know.
Yeah.
And so Scandinavian countries you like?
At the moment, I think they're the best positioned in terms of having a social welfare and a free market capitalist system and combining it to. I don't think it's ideal, but they're much better than America and South Africa with that regard.
Can larger countries adopt their stuff, or is that only effective in smaller societies?
I think it can be adopted, and because I mean, if you look at the United States in the election campaign, people like Bernie Sanders are campaigning on Medicare for all. So in the United States, Medicare is the government paycheck you get when you get over 65.
Okay.
It provides you with healthcare.
Okay.
But they want to make that universal, i.e., the whole population should be covered by that.
Is that similar to the NHS from the
UK?
UK?
Yeah. It's very similar. But the NHS has obviously been established for 50 years.
Yeah.
Where this is very new. I mean, it's not even established yet. It's just a campaign kind of promise,
Because I told you I'm going to America for medical treatment. So I asked my friend the other day, do you believe there should be Medicare for the whole population? And he's like, no, because if you go see a doctor, they automatically going to prescribe you medicine, which is to the benefit of the pharmaceutical companies. So it's again, the NHS is good if the people who are implementing it, because a lot of problems medically can be solved by nutrition. So it's like, you come in, let's do blood tests, let's look at your nutritional values, and please go eat some more vegetables.
Yeah.
And please go sleep differently, please spend less time on your telephone, and a lot of your problems will get fixed, where it's almost like you walk into the NHS, they've got a hammer, and they're looking for a different type of nail they can hit. Yeah. Like there's no okay, let's really figure out. So it's like the problem at the moment is, yes, it's nice, but it's almost like medical ideologies.
Yeah.
Like you have cholesterol problems, let's give you cholesterol pills. Whereas like the ideology should be, you have cholesterol problems, let's analyze your lifestyle. And if we after analyzing your lifestyle and implementing changes, and we determine you still need cholesterol pills, then we give it to you. But at the moment, it's just all streamlined to help the pharmaceutical companies, which is an interesting idea.
Yeah, like pharmaceutical companies, the problem is not them existing, because they're the ones manufacturing the drugs. It's them upmarking those prices at levels high above inflation and overcharging people for that,
Yeah.
And I think that's the concern. So under like the NHS, obviously you still have drug companies producing this stuff, but they're just not making profit out of it.
Yeah.
When in America they make exorbitant amounts of profit,
Crazy.
Yeah. And they can just, I mean, there was an example like a few years ago, last year maybe, where, the EpiPen, people for diabetes, they just like overnight they decided, we're just going to up the price for this,
700%.
Yeah.
There was that one guy, he's in jail now.
Yeah, Martin Shkreli or something like that.
Yeah, like overnight it was like 700% with this drug. And it was like, this drug can literally save your life. And if you're poor, you're going to die.
Yeah.
And I remember he had the Wu-Tang Clan album, which he also wanted to sell or something like, I don't know. Crazy motherfucker. Okay, we're going to finish. I see we on 1 hour and 50 minutes. So
already?
Yeah, man. So let's give another 12 minutes to discuss your opinion on South Africa, because this is obviously different people will have different opinions. Myself, we decided to emigrate 2 months ago. My argument for immigration was, one, it's such a grind in South Africa. My life in Europe was a lot easier in the sense of I wasn't so stressed out. I was certain of income. Getting jobs are a lot easier. Being able to afford insurance, medical care, starting a family will be easier. And then one of the main points were crime, general safety, Obviously, there's an element for my wife of, she said, there's a lack of freedom in South Africa in movement. There's certain places I can't go at certain times of the day. A car broke, and then suddenly it's like, well, there's no public transport. So there's a lack of freedom. And everyone's like, yeah, but there's crime everywhere. I'm like, okay, yes, but no. Come on. There are more jobs available, like, and then the biggest argument for staying, and she's now again back to like, let's stay, is because of the beauty of South Africa, the diversity of South Africa. There are certain opportunities because it is fairly primitive. Any job, any company overseas, there will be 20 competitors where you can start a company here, but then I know at the moment I have limitations with my company because of my BEE scores, because of the demographic. If there were more South African people investing in their future, it'd be easy to work with my government. But the South Africans don't want to invest in their future, and only the Malawians and Zimbabweans. So it's such a complicated discussion. And one of the reasons we want to leave is we can't see that changing soon.
Okay.
We feel like it's going to be like this for a while.
Yeah.
And maybe we're not patient enough, and we don't feel like we can change it in any way, like how to get involved. Our government's been really fucked up that we've been married 5 years and we're still struggling to get a work permit for her.
Over here? Really? Shit.
So where I can move tomorrow to Europe and I am reciprocated with a work permit.
Yeah, so if you go over there, you'll get one.
Immediately. Yeah. So only after 5 years now is she allowed to apply for her residency or her permanent residency, which allows her to work. Where I get... So in the same week, we applied for my American visa and her residency.
Yeah.
I got my visa for America back after 2 days in DHL in my hand.
Okay.
Where the South African government said, give us 10 to 18 months and we will give you an answer. And it's like,
Still
so
waiting.
What? So she's not allowed to have worked in South Africa 5 years.
That's crazy, yeah?
So it's just, there's challenges.
Yeah, there's a lot of bureaucratic challenges, yeah.
And anyway, so that's our thought process on immigration. What Europe in South Africa politically moving forward, hope all these people leaving, all these negative white people that we have. A lot of bullshit from the black community towards the white community. And where do you draw the middle grey lines?
I think we're kind of on a cusp at the moment. I think the Ramaphosa presidency has ushered in a new era, but it's going to take a while for us to see the effects of that. I think this whole thing with state capture, there's so many facets to South African politics. You've got the whole state capture thing, which is obviously dented our economy and looted public services and public, to the detriment of the public. And then...
What does state capture mean?
So state capture is when the Guptas came in and they used all the money for themselves, looted the, taxpayers' money and, bought up influence within the Zuma administration's inner circle, and used, Waterkloof Air Force Base and stuff like that for their own weddings. And, it's essentially using government, what's the right word? Government entities for their own private use.
And our government allowed that.
The Zuma administration
basically comes down to corruption.
Yeah. So as soon as Zuma left, the president Ramaphosa set up the Zondo Commission, which started last year, this time. I think today, actually, a year ago. And then they're looking into state capture and exactly which people were involved, how much money was lost, how many illegal tenders they were given out, and how much of that money we can get back at this stage. And then Pravin Gordhan, who's the Minister of Public Enterprises, is actually part of that commission. So he's looking into a lot of the state-owned enterprises and how much money they lost and how much money we can retrieve, So I think on that level, it's going to take a long while for South Africa to kind of get back to a fiscally sound and healthy place. Because the Zuma administration just, went to town with a lot of these private business
For 10,
people.
15 years.
10
For
years, yeah.
10 years.
So it's basically 10 years of corruption that we lost due to this corruption.
And I feel like, is it fair to say that we shouldn't hold the ANC accountable, but certain individuals within the ANC? Because I feel like the ANC has got quite a bad name with a lot of people.
The ANC is split into two camps at the moment. You got the kind of the good guys, which is the Ramaphosa camp, and then the guys who want to get back at Ramaphosa, which is the Zuma faction. If you go back to end of 2017, when they elected the leadership of the ANC, he was running against Dlamini Zuma, and Ramaphosa won that election, to become leader of the party and hence president. But a lot of the Zuma faction are still upset about that, and they poured a lot of money into defeating him. And the camps are still very much divided, especially up in Luthuli House in Joburg, which is, the ANC is not a unified camp at all.
Would it be good for our democracy if they split into two separate parties?
It could be interesting. I think the future of South African politics is anyway going to be coalition parties.
Who's going to
there will probably be some element of the ANC and the DA together.
Okay.
I think some of the Zuma, if there's a split, the Zuma faction will probably govern with the EFF.
And what's your opinion on the EFF?
I don't like them all. No, they're thugs and they use violence to reach their...
Are they the guys in the red in the parliament?
Yeah.
So anyone from overseas, type in EFF parliament.
Yeah.
And I'm sure you're going to see some crazy videos of people throwing chairs and fighting in our parliament.
I just don't like. I don't condone any political violence, and I think they use that's a big part of their image and their messaging is to intimidate people and use violence to get their means. And
basically racism.
And it's against black people and white people.
Yeah.
It's not.
But is it within?
anything.
Is it racism? Because I think what some people don't understand, there's racism within cultures, within race.
Yeah.
So my wife gets racism based on Afrikaans.
Yeah.
She gets a lot of people that are like, I refuse to speak English to you, but she's white.
Yeah.
But I also know that some Xhosa people don't like the Zimbabwean.
Yeah.
Some Zimbabweans don't like the Xhosa, don't like the Malawian. So there is
like
also
xenophobic violence.
So is the EFF also racist towards certain black culture, or
I don't necessarily think it's a race thing. It's just they want to be in a position of superiority, and they feel they can't get that through their ideas. They'll use violence.
Okay, almost like mafia type of things.
Yeah, I think it's a very fascist element. They kind of promote themselves as these left-wing saviors, but they're actually very proto-fascist in a lot of their tactics.
And are they also in certain areas in South Africa? Because I don't really see them locally here.
They govern with the DA in the Eastern Cape.
Okay.
They don't have a big stronghold in the Western Cape.
What does it mean they govern with the DA?
They're in a coalition with the DA in the Eastern Cape.
No way.
Yeah.
I would never thought that would happen.
Yeah.
Why?
Just because they had the most number of votes, so that they could form a coalition. It was obviously to keep the ANC out as well.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's politics for you.
That's politics. It's always a deal, So I think coalition politics will be the future of this country. I don't think. The DA are quite a weak political party on its own right.
What what's the guy's name of the DA?
The leader,
the black guy with
Mamusi Mamane.
What's your opinion of that one?
I think he's quite a weak leader.
Okay.
Yeah. And there's a lot of factions within the Democratic Alliance where, the conservative factions and kind of like the Helen Zille crowd are quite right-wing.
I quite like the guy, I thought, but maybe it's just his public persona that he put out.
He's not a bad guy. I just think he's a weak leader. The DA haven't increased their vote share in the last election. And if you're running against the ANC in their current disarray, you should be increasing your vote share.
Okay.
And for them to lose votes, it's quite a damning indictment of his leadership.
Okay. So you think that if the DA wants to do well, they need a different leader?
I think they need a different messaging. I think they're very much focused on, the kind of the white Cape Town base. Look at Cape Town, we're this European town. But they're essentially running this town for white people only.
And they're not so focused on national.
No, they're focused on national, but I think they coming back to one of my first points about, the whole spatial apartheid thing.
Yeah.
They're not investing any money in inner city and like housing or, social
DA
housing.
now.
Yeah.
In Cape Town.
In Cape Town. The budget is all going to places like Constantia and Camps Bay.
Seriously?
Yeah.
Fuckers.
Which is why a lot of these people, these civil society groups are challenging them and say you have to build housing in the inner city, in the CBD.
And that's why all the white people are voting for the DA, because they're being protected at the moment.
Yeah. Because they clean your potholes in Constantia.
I went for my business to this weird marketing event, not marketing event, some sort of event at Stellenbosch Golf Club. And they had one of the DA guys talking there.
Okay.
And I have zero experience with politicians.
Yeah.
And this guy spoke, and I'm like, fucking hell, this is like real politics. The way he's talking up there, suddenly this persona, and suddenly he started mentioning these random facts and statistics of that means fucking nothing. It's like our statistics show that any pothole being reported within the Western Cape has been fixed within 24 hours of being reported.
Yeah.
We have now, with the water shortage, we have implemented these type of mechanisms and valves that automatically detects any leakage at any place. For example, schools that close on a Friday and the leakage will happen until Monday morning. And I was just like, and everyone's like, fucking hell, the DA is doing awesome. And I'm like, but what about this fucker that just got murdered down the road?
Yeah.
What about that? What about this? I didn't say anything, but I'm like, you spinning all this shit, and people are so dumb that they get caught up with what you're saying.
Yeah. And earlier this year, like in the city of Cape Town's annual budget, they didn't make any allowance for budget for lights in Khayelitsha,
What?
for safety reasons. And they said, oh, there's no money for that. But there's plenty of lights in Constantia, comes back, because that's where their voters come from.
Yeah, which is crazy. Like anyone listening that's maybe not from here, like we have a place called Camps Bay, where you buy housing, not housing, you buy properties and houses, penthouses for anything from $5 to $15 million. And literally 15-20 kilometers away you have, and it's a whole suburb neighborhood. It's like a whole city basically. It's just weird.
Yeah. No, that's coming back, like how segregated Cape Town is on many things, Like we said, you drive in from the airport and you see poor people. The first thing you see, people living in, houses that aren't 4 walls and a roof. And then you drive 10 minutes further and there's these lavish estates in Constantia, and it's insane that we live like this.
And in America, for example, are the poorer people staying a lot further away from the rich people? I'm imagining now Bel Air. Basically, what I'm saying is you've got Bel Air, and 5 minutes drive away, you've got ghetto.
Yeah, absolutely.
Is that similar in America, or is they a little bit further removed from each other?
It's similar as well.
Okay.
Every country, London has that as well, But
you've got I remember being in the World's End I forget, like in Chelsea.
Yeah.
Like you'll be in that main road, and then suddenly you take a left, and then the council estates.
Yeah.
And then right next door, 100 meters away, you can buy Versace.
Yeah. Yeah, that's been... England are quite big on their social housing,
Yeah.
But America is a lot similar to South Africa, where America doesn't have good public transport either. And it's very kind of segregated in terms of how people live and the spatial planning. So actually, we actually have a lot more in common with America than Britain and some of the European... Because America doesn't invest anything in infrastructure. The public transport there is shocking.
Because I asked my friend, I was like, okay, I'm planning now to come to you for a month.
Yeah.
I need to plan my budget. So I'm like, what type of public transport do you have? He's like, what do you mean? I'm like, don't you have like buses or overground or underground or like taxis? He's like, well, you can Uber. It's like, that's your public transport.
Yeah.
And I'm like, because he lives in a part in Charleston where I think the city is separated by a river.
Okay.
and you have to cross that, which is about 800 meters. I'm like, but can I walk from one side to the other if I decide to like save money? It's like, no, you can literally, it's only for cars. So it's also like not even designed to like walk.
Yeah.
Like this for pedestrians.
Yeah, that's crazy.
So I said to him, is there some conspiracy that all the big car manufacturers don't want the cities to develop for pedestrians because they'll lose money?
Yeah, I mean that's the whole lobbying thing you spoke about earlier. You know, big companies telling government not to make certain laws or invest in certain enterprises because they might lose money. You know.
And are you positive about South Africa for the next 5 to 10 years?
It's difficult to say. I am about 60-70% positive. Yeah.
Okay, so you feel we're going in a positive direction?
Yeah, there's just a lot of internal politics in the ANC that need to be sorted out. I think as soon as that is sorted out, we'll be... Because the ANC are going to win the next election again. There's no doubt about that.
Won't they win the next 5?
I think the next 1 or 2, and then I think it'll be going to coalition politics.
And what's your message to all the whining white people out there?
Try and do more to improve the country. Yeah.
And which way do they get involved? I don't know if you were here for the, I think it was 2 years ago, there was this farm killings, and then we had this one day where everyone protested by blocking the N2s and whatever. I'm like, fuck. You can't spend 1 day a year getting involved with civil society. No. Like, you have to do it more regularly. Put pressure on governments. Like, I always talk to my dad. I'm like, black people in America, black people in South Africa, vision their struggle with the government for their human rights. That's the effort it takes to change. And look at the time that it took. Now, you guys are sitting here complaining, like, how much time and energy are you investing in changing? Yeah. And if you don't do it, then fucking no one's going to do it.
Yeah.
But how do they get involved?
Through like civil society groups and going to meetings and going to talks.
But who do they go to? Do you type into Google civil society?
Yeah. Or like, foundations in South Africa, or housing foundations or AIDS foundations or...
Yeah. And how do you put pressure on the ANC? How do you put pressure on the DA?
By joining groups like this.
Okay.
Yeah. Starting a podcast, talking about it.
And quit your fucking WhatsApp groups where you have an opinion on that. Go fucking out to the real world.
Yeah.
Stop putting this shit on social media.
Yeah, go do stuff. But also open the stuff up for debate, if you don't... Social media can have a good kind of element to it, but it just gets nasty really quickly, name calling, it gets personal.
Yeah.
Which I don't think it's good.
Anyone that has an opinion on anything we say, please put it on in comment.
Yeah.
And argue with us.
Exactly.
I don't care. Like, as long as there's a discussion. A big part of my my podcast is educational based, in the sense of, I think in the old South Africa, your parents, school, and church provided you with everything you needed in life. That was your 3 sources of education. And I think it worked well because we lived in such a close society.
Yeah.
And that was before globalization. And the current world that I live in, where each year I can live in a different country, I'm involved with different cultures, different religions, languages. And a lot of what my school, Paul Roos Gymnasium, taught me is not applicable for the real world. It's a very naive white picket fence. What my church taught me is that there's no black people in the church.
Yeah, kind of not a representation of the real South Africa.
What my parents taught me is not applicable to, or they can't help me to make life decisions now because they don't understand my lifestyle. The morals and principles they taught me are good, but podcasts have created an environment for me to learn, and I hope that this podcast creates an environment for other people to have thought-provoking conversations and ideas, and hopefully this starts helping other people.
Absolutely, yeah. The more people you put on, the more ideas, it's good.
So, and if you don't like it, please tell me you don't like it.
Yeah, exactly.
And then I'll tell you to go fuck yourself.
Open the debate.
Dude, we talked for 2 hours and 10 minutes.
Oh, didn't feel like it, huh?
Yeah, man, it went very quickly. Thank you.
Thanks for having me.
Let's finish it up there and then let's go braai with Jan, man.
Sounds good.
Okay, wicked.
Thank you.